My name's Trayvone Clayton. I'm a guard for the St. Mary's Huskies men's basketball team who's here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So where I come from, Uniac Square, is a place of positivity. It's usually framed with negative impacts on others, but my community has been positive my whole entire life. So that kind of made me want to show people that there are great people where I come from. Basketball has always been our heart. It's always been the place to motivate us, to keep us pushing, keep us going through the struggles that we went through. So I just used basketball as kind of like my meditation. So it was basically like my peace. Whenever something was on my mind, whenever I was struggling with something, I would just want to go shoot a ball.
Linton Brown around tough. Finds Clayton in the corner, knocks down the three, and beats the buzzer. Big time shot by Trayvone Clayton in his final game here on home court.
My older brother, Marquise Clayton, who also went to SMU, I just looked up to him when he was playing basketball, and whenever he was angry, he would take it out on the ball court and try not to take it out on anyone else, and that's just what I followed.
He's about the greater good of the team. You know, outside of basketball, he's really about the greater good in the community. Doesn't seem to be a selfish bone in his body as a basketball player, and he translates that to the rest of his life.
All my life, I just grew up, I always took care of youth. I did youth counseling, like I did leadership camps and stuff with kids. And so I guess it was always in me to be a leader, but basketball was always my focus. So I guess being a point guard that's leadership as well. You got to show people where they are, how to run the floor. And so coming out of high school was, basketball was still my main focus. I took a year and went to Toronto, played more basketball and learned more about other people and just seen the diversity in Toronto. And so Toronto made me realize there's more racism impact across Canada as well. When I was in Toronto, that was the first time I was ever called like the N-word. I was getting on a TTC, a train, and the guy called me an N-word. And so the way I wanted to respond, my teammate grabbed me. He's like, don't do that here because you'll be the one who will be behind like the bars. And so that was just like, whoa, so this stuff is really a thing in Canada, because they always, like growing up, they were always saying Canada's a place there is no racism. That's what people always thought. But it's always been here. And when I was 16, that was my first time ever being street checked, and I was arrested. They had me up for assault and resisting arrest. And that kind of just made me be like, whoa. And then when they did the street checks report here in Halifax, I started to see similar stories to what I went through when I was 16. So I was just like, okay, that's what changed my perspective of I wanted to be a police officer growing up. And then that kind of just pushed me away, because that system is corrupt, it's fixed. It's made for others. It was never made or never built for black individuals here in Nova Scotia or across the world. None of the systems were.
I listened to Trayvone and to hear his words and to hear his stories and the way he puts it in a context, looking at it from a different angle. And it's doing big things, because we have to draw attention to this, that it's not the same. Trayvone's an outstanding athlete, played at St. Mary's, has had a good career, but what happened if he didn't have that career? Where would he be? And now he's using that platform to do good and to talk to others about discrimination, racism, and trying. What he's really saying is, we're not there with inclusion yet. People don't see me the same. And that advocation and what he's talking about will last him a lifetime, whether basketball will only last about 5 to 7 years. And what he's done with this platform is incredible.
So I got the chance to go to Parliament Hill. It was Black History Month. We were there as Voices on the Hill. We got the chance to go speak with ministers to talk about systemic racism, discrimination, all that kind of stuff. And so when we first got there, you could just tell that they weren't ready, they weren't prepared. When they seen us, a group of black folks walk in, we got there, they started patting us up, like they did it roughly. But then when another folk would go, a white person, it was simple, it was basic, just a quick, and then they got the chance to go through. And so they split us up into groups. They put us like more youth on the 4th floor, and then like the chaperones were on the 3rd floor. So I was on the 3rd floor and I was doing an interview just like I'm doing now with CPAC. And so when I was doing my interview, security guard came to the 3rd floor and he approached one of the chaperones. He was like, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but, and you know, when someone says, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but they're gonna say something rude. And so he goes, the dark-skinned kids on the 4th floor have to leave. And so when I heard that, I just unclipped all my like equipment that they put on me to get my interview. And I walked over to him and I approached him. I was like, what did you just say? Could you repeat that, please? And he wouldn't do it because he knew he was in the wrong for what he just said. He wouldn't admit to it. But everyone was just so heated. We just had to like spread out. He walked downstairs and me, I was just personally thinking like, what should I do? What do I have to do about this kind of situation? And so I walked back to my hotel room. When I got to my hotel room, I just kind of typed everything up on my phone, the story that what I just experienced, and I posted it all on my social media. And then after that, it blew up.
Great for Trayvone to take this on because it's tough for a lot of young black athletes and young black people in the community, you know, to take on the government and say, hey, listen, things need to be changed. So I applaud him for having the courage to do that.
If you listen to a lot of our leaders around our communities, they're not angry. They're hurt about what happened, and there is some anger there, but they want people to understand, first of all. They want people to converse about this, and then they want to make a better place for their kids, and that's all everybody wants. So, you know, that's where we start, and Trayvone, by him talking about his past, some of the things he went up against, and identifying those things and bringing them out is a great place to start, and he's doing an incredible job as a young man, way beyond his times. And I'm glad these conversations are starting to happen because they need to happen. And just because you see an athlete doing something, they have lives. They have to, what is it like to, you know, come home after going to a friend's house at 2 o'clock in the morning as a black person on the streets? What's that like for people? And we have to identify that.
For me, it's not really get involved because it's just my lifestyle, it's my reality. It's something that black folks we face on a regular basis. So that's just something that we have to be prepared for, always ready for. Like if I'm out on the street walking, I'm just always, my head's on a swivel. Whenever I see a cop car, I'm just like freezing a little bit just to be like, okay, like if anything, I gotta prepare myself of what I have to deal with or if anything like that.
And make sure that it becomes safer. And it's not just athletes. Athletes have a responsibility to look at different messaging, I think, and exactly what Trayvone's doing about talking about, just talk about discrimination, talk about race, and let's get it out there and hear their stories.
It's unfortunate that the George Floyd situation had to happen. This man gets murdered in Minneapolis for you know, our white contemporaries to finally realize, hey, things have been, you know, not just, that there's been inequality. So moving forward, it's going to be young white people that really change this thing. You know, we as black people and as people of color, we need advocates.
And as game changers, we've been doing protests. We've been doing protests for street checks. We did protests for, we were the ambassadors of Gay Pride. We did protests for them. And so it was just like, that's something that has to be done. And so we did it with multiple people. And we got the chance to speak upon it, and it was just like, that was my first time ever seeing thousands of people step out for a protest here in Nova Scotia. And I was just, I was shocked. And I was like, whoa, I didn't expect to see this. When people started calling me an activist, I was just like, I'm not really an activist, it's just my everyday life. Like, it's something I have to be prepared for.